In this video, we're going to look at plotting points on a rectangular coordinate system. But before we get into plotting the points, let's talk about some terminology that we need to understand. So the first bit of terminology is just the rectangular coordinate system itself, and that is this graph here, or this grid, that is made up of both the horizontal line that we refer to as the x-axis and the vertical line, which we refer to as the y-axis. You will notice that these two axes cross at a point in the center, and that is referred to as the origin. And at the origin, a point is going to have both a 0 value for x and a 0 value for y. So the origin, it would be the point 0, 0. Now, you'll notice that the cross that is created by both the x and the y-axes break the graph up into 4 pieces, which we call the quadrants. And we actually name each of the quadrants. So quadrant 1 is to the right of the origin and above the x-axis. So it's to the right of y and above x. Quadrant 2 is going to be over here to the left of the y-axis and above the x-axis. And you'll notice that we're going kind of in a counterclockwise fashion as we name the quadrants. So quadrant 3 would be down here, and quadrant 4 would fall here. And the quadrants are helpful because the signs of both x and y are always the same if you choose the same quadrant. For example, you'll notice in quadrant 1, the x value is always going to be positive, and the y value is also always going to be positive. In quadrant 2, the x value is going to be negative, and the y value is going to be positive. In quadrant 3, the x value is negative, and the y value is also negative. And then in quadrant 4, the x value is positive, while the y value is negative. So we can identify what quadrant a point is going to be located in by looking at the sign of both the x and the y value. Now, in addition to thinking of this as the x and y value, the two values combined are referred to as an ordered pair. And it's an ordered pair because the x value is always listed first, and the y value is always listed second. Sometimes you will see the x value referred to as the x coordinate of the point, and the y value would be referred to as the y coordinate of the point. And remember, x always comes first and y always comes second. Now, what do these values or coordinates tell us? Well, they tell us how far to move from the origin in order to find the location of the point itself. So let's go down here and look at our example of where we are actually going to be plotting some points. And our first example here is point A, which has an x value of -2 and a y value of 3. And again, remember, it's always x is listed first, and then comma, y is listed second. So my x value tells me to start at the origin and go 2 to the left, so a -2 movement. My y value is +3, so that's going to go up 3, and only after I have made both moves am I ready to plot the point itself. So I've gone to the left 2 on X, I've gone up 3 on on Y, and that is point A, which falls where? Into quadrant 2. So now let's look at point B. So point B has an X value of 3 and a Y value of 5. So again, I'm going to start at the origin. I'm going to go positive 3 on X, which is 3 to the right. I'm going to go positive 5 on Y, which is up 5, and then that's going to be the location of point B. So again, we always start at the origin, and then our X value tells us how far to move left or right, and our Y value tells us how far to move up or down. And only after we've made both movements are we ready to plot our point. And so that's going to be in quadrant 1, because it's over here in the positive positive. Let's look at C. C has an X value of -3 and a Y value of -2. So I'm going to start at my origin. I'm going to go -3 on X, -2 on Y, and here is my point C, and that's going to be in quadrant 3, which we could have identified even before we plotted it simply by recognizing that quadrant 3 has a negative, and this point has a negative, so a negative X and a negative Y. And then last but not least, let's look at point D. Point D has an X value of 1 and a Y value of -4. So we go to 1 on X, down to -4 on Y. And here is our location for point D. And that falls into quadrant 4. Which again, we could have identified even before we plotted it by recognizing that since the X value is positive and the Y value is negative, that point should have fallen into quadrant 4.